Okay, so today we're going to talk about 4.3, the impacts of expansion. The objective for today is students will be able to explain the political impacts of expansion. So today we're focusing on Today we're going to focus on the political aspects of expansion and what that looked like. Expansion after the war. Here we're talking about the War of 1812 and what happened after that war ended. So after the war ended, we had the Treaty of Ghent, which was the treaty between the U.S. and Great Britain. And what that treaty did was it set up the boundaries between the U.S. and Canada. So you can see it right here, the Convention of 1818. That was when the Treaty of Ghent was written. And this is the boundary right here that we're talking about. And this boundary was set up on the 49th parallel. So if you know your longitude and latitude, your latitude are the parallel lines that go from east to west on the globe. And this would be the 49th parallel. The second expansion after the War of 1812 was the Adams-Onis Treaty. And the Adams-Onis Treaty is what gave us Florida right down here. So it gave us Florida in 1819 from Spain. So as you can see, after the war, we really started to expand westward and even north. And this is important because this can explain some of the reasons why we had tensions with the Native Americans that we talked about in the last lesson. But this didn't just cause problems with the Native Americans, it also issues of how to deal with with European powers, right? We just finished the War of 1812, so what do we need to do? How do we need to set up our relationships with Europe? And that's where the Monroe Doctrine comes into play. And I know this is a lot of text, so this is the Monroe Doctrine specifically, so I'm going to read through and annotate this as I go, and that's what I want you to do as well. So the Monroe Doctrine was written and created by President Monroe. And it was basically how to deal with Europe. So the first thing they said is that the American continents should not, so the American continents should not be considered for future colonization by European powers. Essentially, America is closed. So they're telling Europe to stay out. The second thing that they said was that the nations in the Western Hemisphere were inherently different than those of Europe. So what they are saying is the Western Hemisphere, so we're talking about the Americas, are republics, right? So we believe in people representing, we believe in people participating in the government, versus Europe, which is monarchies. So Europe has kings and queens. So because Europe is different than the Americas, therefore Europe should stay out of the Americas. The third reason was that the United States would regard as a threat. So the U.S. is going to view a threat to its own peace and safety. Any attempt by European powers to impose their system on any independent state in the western suburbs. So essentially, if any European powers come over, they're going to view that as a threat to its own peace and safety. And then finally, the U.S. would not interfere with European affairs. So again, the purpose of the Monroe Doctrine was to set expectations and policies for the U.S. European relations. And then the final issue of expansion was the Missouri Compromise. So in addition to dealing with Native Americans, this idea of expansion also brought up the issue of slavery. So the Missouri Compromise was a compromise over slavery. So the deal was, if you wanted to become a state, which was a pretty big deal, people wanted to become a state, you had to have 60,000 people to become a state. Once you had 60,000 people, then you could apply to become a state. Before Missouri, there were 10 slave states and 10 free states. So yay. So you can look at the free states are the blue, slave states are the red. Awesome. Everybody's happy. However, if we're going to add Missouri, that would put it over the edge. Missouri wanted to be added as a slave state. But that means that then you would have 11 slave states and 10 free states. Jefferson made a great quote by saying, "We have a wolf by the ears and we can neither hold him nor safely let him go," meaning that the issue of slavery is going to continue. And we can either sit here and hold on to it and pretend like it's not happening, or we can let it go, but either way, it's going to be a problem. So Henry Clay came up with the Missouri Compromise as a way to try to solve this problem temporarily. And what Henry Clay said was, first, add Missouri as a slave state. Then add Maine as a free state. Then you have, it's equal still, right? And then moving forward, we're going to use the 36-30 parallel. So we see that 36-30 right there. Anything north would be non-slave. Anything south would be a slave state. And that is it for today.